Have you ever heard your own voice echo back at you from something that wasn't human? That's what happened to me deep in the Colorado wilderness. I thought I was alone on a trail called Devil's Pass, but then my voice came back to me, just a second too late, and it kept getting closer. And when I stopped talking, it didn't. I started the hike around noon. It was supposed to be a solo weekend, just me, nature, and a long trail through Devil's Pass. I had read that it got its name from sudden weather changes and twisted paths that often disoriented hikers. But I loved that stuff. I wanted isolation. The first few miles were peaceful, birds chirping, wind rustling through pine needles, the crunch of my boots on gravel. I remember saying something out loud, something stupid like, "Guess it's just you and me, Woods." And then I heard it. "Guess it's just you and me, Woods," repeated in a voice that sounded exactly like mine. But off, like someone trying to mimic me and getting the timing just slightly wrong. There were no canyons, no cliffs, nothing that should have echoed. I stopped walking. I turned in every direction, nothing, just trees and silence. I laughed nervously and said, "Okay, that was weird." Again. "Okay, that was weird." Same voice, same cadence, but closer. I didn't echo anything else. I just listened. And then the voice whispered again, but this time I hadn't said anything. It said, "Don't stop now." My voice. But I swear on everything, I didn't say a word. I turned around and walked back, fast. The trail didn't look the same. Branches that weren't there before blocked my path. Tree trunks leaned closer. Then, "Don't stop now," came again. But from behind me this time, closer, louder. I ran. I didn't care where, just away. But the forest didn't let me. Every turn looked the same, and every time I made a sound, it was repeated, closer, clearer. I burst through a thicket and into a clearing. Finally, open space. But the silence was worse than the echo. Then I saw it. Across the clearing, me, standing there. Same clothes, same backpack, same face, but the eyes were black. It tilted its head at me, like it was studying something unfamiliar. It spoke first. Not a mimic, not a repeat. It said, "You called me." Its voice was mine, but fuller, older, layered with something else underneath. I didn't answer. It started walking toward me, every step silent, gliding. I turned and ran again, but it didn't need to run. It was always a few steps behind. I tried to scream for help, but my voice didn't sound right anymore. It cracked. It echoed before I finished. Then, dozens of versions of my own voice filled the woods, all repeating me, all delayed, laughing, mocking, whispering. And one voice said, "Give me your name." It was mine, glitching. I fell to my knees. My mind couldn't keep up. I remembered reading a tiny, almost forgotten bit of lore. Devil's Pass wasn't named after the weather. It was named after something old, something that mimicked voices to lure travelers off path. And when it finally took your name, you stayed behind. As the next echo, I don't remember how I got out. I just remember waking up in my car, parked at the trailhead. No signs of struggle, no marks, but now, even in my apartment, I hear it. My voice, saying things I haven't said yet, whispering from closets, from mirrors, and that's why I don't talk anymore, because every time I do, it gets a little closer. If you ever find yourself hiking Devil's Pass, don't speak, don't answer, and whatever you do, don't listen to the echo. Have you ever seen something move in a way it absolutely shouldn't? Something your brain refuses to understand? I did, and I wish I could forget it. I was deep in the Sierra Nevada, hiking solo. The kind of trip where you go to get away from people, from noise, from life. I had just set my sights on a rock face that looked impossible to climb, but something else was already on it. Something crawling, on all fours, straight up the cliffside, too fast, too smooth. And then it stopped, turned its head a full 180 degrees, and looked right at me. 3 days earlier, I parked my car at a trailhead no one uses. It was early spring. Still cold at night, snow patches clinging to shaded slopes. I was packed for 5 days off-grid, no cell signal, no people. Exactly what I wanted. The forest was too quiet, but I chalked it up to the elevation, or maybe just my nerves. First night, uneventful. Second night, I heard something outside my tent, a slow dragging sound. I told myself it was wind. By the third day, something felt wrong. Birds stopped singing. I didn't see a single squirrel, not even a rabbit. I found deep footprints in the snow, but they weren't human. Long fingers, not toes, and they led toward the cliffs. I followed the trail the prints left behind. Don't ask me why, I guess I was curious. That was my mistake. The trail led me to a sheer cliffside, and that's when I saw it. That thing, moving like a spider on all fours. Too fast, too smooth. Its bones pushed through its skin like it didn't fit inside itself. Then it stopped, turned its neck all the way around, and locked eyes with me. I didn't scream, I couldn't. I backed away slowly. Then I ran. I ran until my lungs gave out. Branches whipped my face, my pack snagged on thorns. When I finally stopped, I realized something chilling. I didn't mark my trail. I was lost. I didn't set up camp that night. I didn't dare. I just kept walking. Every time I stopped, I heard it, that scraping, dragging noise, like something crawling. I kept the flashlight pointed in every direction. At one point I saw movement in the trees, too high off the ground, too many limbs. It was following me. I found a shallow cave before dawn. I thought it was safe, curled up inside shivering. But the moment I closed my eyes, I heard it breathe, not beside me, above me. It had climbed the cliff. It was on the ceiling. I ran again, out of the cave, down the ridge. I slipped, hit my knee, but I didn't stop. I could hear it crawling above me along the cliffs, always above, watching, waiting. Hours later, I found a river. Civilization had to be downstream. I followed it, but I kept seeing it, across the water, always just out of reach, always watching. I made it out the next day, collapsed at a ranger station, half delirious. They found my car, they found my trail, but they never found the cave, or the cliff, or any tracks. The ranger told me that area is not on the map, said the land changes up there, said you're lucky you got out. But I still dream about it, about that thing. It watched me leave, it let me go. 1 week later I got a package in the mail, no return address. Inside, a photo of me, standing at the cliff, looking up, and in the top corner, the thing, looking down at me, smiling. Have you ever seen something that shouldn't exist? I have. In the middle of Oregon's backcountry, I saw a tent that was never there. It had no entrance, no seams, and by morning, it vanished without a single trace. But what scared me most wasn't that it disappeared. It was what I saw standing where it used to be. I set off alone on a 5-day backpacking trip through the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest in Oregon. It wasn't my first solo hike, but something about this one felt different, heavier. The air felt off. It was early October, leaves crunching, wind whispering through the trees. I chose a secluded campsite beside a narrow river. No trails nearby, no one for miles, or so I thought. The first night was peaceful. I set up my tent, made a small fire, and ate a dehydrated meal under the stars. The river was just loud enough to be calming, but around 3 a.m. I woke up suddenly. It wasn't a noise that woke me. It was silence. No wind, no water, no forest sounds. Just absolute stillness. It was like the whole world was holding its breath. Then I heard it, a faint rustling, across the river. By morning the sounds had returned. Birds, wind, water. I shook off the unease and walked to the river's edge to brush my teeth. That's when I saw it. A red tent, pitched across the river, maybe 40 feet away. But there hadn't been anything there yesterday. I scanned for footprints or a trail. Nothing. And the weirdest part, the tent had no entrance, no flap, no zipper, just smooth fabric on all sides, like it was never meant to be opened. I called out, "Hello?" No response. I waited, but no movement. I even waved. Still nothing. I considered crossing the river, but the water was too cold and deep, and there were no logs or shallow areas nearby. I figured maybe someone hiked in overnight and was still asleep. But something about that tent gnawed at me. It didn't belong. As the sun dipped below the trees, the woods changed. The shadows stretched too long. The birds went quiet again. I kept glancing across the river, and the tent was still there, unchanged, untouched. But as the light faded, I noticed something else. The shape inside. It wasn't clear, but it looked like someone was standing, not sitting or lying down, just standing, motionless, for hours. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring out my tent flap at that red thing across the river. Around 2 a.m., I heard splashing, just once, then silence. I grabbed my flashlight and scanned the river. Nothing. The tent was still there, but the silhouette was gone. I zipped my tent up tight, heart pounding. I didn't sleep a minute. As dawn broke, I threw open my tent and ran to the river. The red tent was gone, completely. No footprints, no flattened grass, no trail through the underbrush. It was like it had never been there, but something was in its place, a pile of wet stones stacked like a crude marker, and next to it, a torn scrap of red fabric soaked through. I packed up in 10 minutes flat. As I hiked out, I kept feeling like I was being followed. Every rustle made me jump. Every branch creak sounded like a footstep. When I finally reached my car, I broke down and cried. I never looked back. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I see it again. That smooth, seamless red tent and the figure inside, just waiting. They say the woods don't care if you're lost, but sometimes they notice you. Whatever that tent was, it wasn't made for shelter. It wasn't made for people. I don't know what I saw out there, but I know one thing for sure. Some things in the forest aren't meant to be found, and some tents weren't meant to be opened. If you like these horror stories, please like and share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more true horror stories. When I looked at the last photo on my phone, I dropped it. There, in the background, just behind the tree line, was me. Same jacket, same backpack, same scar above my right eyebrow. Only, I hadn't seen him in days. And in that photo, he was smiling at me. It started a week before that photo. I was hiking a solo stretch of the Appalachian Trail, just me, my pack, and silence. I wanted peace. I got something else. By day 2, I started feeling watched, like something was just behind me. Always just behind. On the 4th day, it happened. I was refilling my water bottle at a creek when I heard twigs snap. I looked up and froze. There, standing across the stream, was me. Same jacket, same pack, even the scar. He smiled and said, "See you at the next checkpoint," then walked away. I ran up the hill yelling, "Hey!" But he was gone. No footprints, no sound, nothing. I thought I was dehydrated, sleep deprived. Maybe I imagined it, but deep down I knew better. That night, I checked the photos I'd taken, and there he was, in the corner of a shot from the day before, partially hidden behind a tree. Another photo, him crouching behind a log. Same clothes, same scar, always smiling. I hadn't seen him once with my own eyes, until the creek. That night, I woke up standing outside my tent. I don't remember unzipping it. I was barefoot, and there were fresh prints in the dirt, leading away from my tent, from me and from someone else. I followed the prints until I lost them in the brush. That's when I saw him again, down the ridge. He wasn't walking. He was standing, waiting. I shouted, but he didn't move. He just turned and walked backward into the trees. The next morning, I found something lying near the path, a hiking pack, same color, same model, same scuff marks. Inside, a journal, my name written in it, but the entries weren't mine. They were dated 3 years ago. I kept hiking. I didn't know what else to do. When I reached the next checkpoint, a weathered wooden sign by a ranger box. I saw him again. This time just a glimpse. He ducked behind a tree. But the sign, it had my name carved into it, like someone was waiting for me. That night, I caught my reflection in a puddle. But the man looking back blinked before I did. I stepped back, he stepped forward, and then he mouthed the words, "You're almost done." When I finally got to a trailhead town, I tried to forget it. But that last photo, the one with him smiling behind me, it wasn't from my camera. It was sent to me, from a number with no name, no history, just the message. "Thanks for the hike." I deleted the photo. It came back. I smashed the phone. It showed up on my laptop. In the reflection of the screen, I saw someone standing behind me, wearing my jacket and smiling. I don't hike anymore. I don't camp. Sometimes I wake up standing outside, barefoot. And once, I saw a photo on someone else's phone, a shot of the trail, with me in the background, smiling. You ever hear a scream that didn't sound human, but still hit you like it was? I was deep in the Yukon wilderness, 30 miles from the nearest road, on a solo camping trip I planned for months. It was midnight. I just zipped up my tent when I heard it. A scream, raw, human, terrified, echoing from the tree line. But I swear to you, it was like it was coming from everywhere at once. Earlier that night, things were fine. I was sitting by the fire, warming my hands, sipping whiskey from a tin cup. I remember thinking how quiet it was. Too quiet. Not a single bird, no wind, just the fire crackling and that creeping feeling of being watched. I kept telling myself it was just the isolation messing with me. But now I'm not so sure. Then came the scream. High-pitched, broken, like someone being ripped apart alive. I grabbed my flashlight, nearly dropped it, and bolted toward the tree line. My instinct said run away, but something stronger pulled me in. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like a woman, in agony. The trees swallowed me. My flashlight flickered, barely cutting through the dark. The scream echoed again, farther now. I pushed deeper, feet crunching dead leaves and frost. My breath came in clouds, heart pounding in my ears. Then it happened. The scream stopped, dead silence. I turned in a circle. The scream had come from ahead, I was sure. But now, it was behind me. I spun around, nothing, just trees, shadows, cold. I whispered, "Hello." My voice sounded pathetic, tiny. That's when I noticed something worse. The forest looked different, wrong. I couldn't find my own trail back. Then I heard it, breathing, not mine. Slow, ragged, right behind me. I froze. I didn't even want to turn around. But I did, slowly. There was nothing there. Just trees swaying in a wind I couldn't feel. I stumbled backward and tripped. My hand slammed into frozen soil. That's when I noticed it. A perfect circle in the ground. A hole, not deep. Just there. Inside it, hair. Human hair. Tangled. Black. Fresh. I gagged and scrambled back, heart hammering. I turned and ran. Branches slashed at my face. My flashlight hit something and blinked out. Darkness swallowed everything. And then I heard it again, that scream. But this time it was right behind me, and it was my voice. Somehow I made it back to camp. The fire was out. The tent was gone. Not collapsed, not torn, just gone. No tracks, no gear, just a perfect circle of scorched earth where it had been, like it never existed. In a panic, I grabbed my emergency radio and cranked it. Static. Then, through the static, my own voice. "Help. Please help me." I hadn't touched the radio since arriving. The voice repeated, then laughed. I didn't sleep. I sat there waiting for dawn. When the light finally came, I hiked nonstop back toward my car. But everything was wrong. The trail was twisted. Landmarks were missing. My GPS wouldn't turn on. At one point I found myself, another version of me, walking toward me on the path, but it vanished as I blinked. After nearly 12 hours of wandering, I saw it. My truck, covered in frost. I sprinted. As I started the engine, a shadow moved in the rearview mirror, tall, thin, pale. I didn't look back. I drove. I never stopped until I hit the highway. I filed a report. No one believed me. A ranger told me I'd probably eaten something bad. "Your mind can play tricks," he said, but then he paused and asked, "You didn't hear the scream, did you?" His face went pale. He said others had. None of them came back the same. That was 2 years ago. Sometimes late at night I still hear it, the scream, the tream from the tree line. Only now it comes from my backyard. There are no trees there. Not anymore. But the scream always finds me. And every time it gets closer. You can tell yourself it's just the wind, just an animal, just your imagination. But when the scream knows your name, you'll know the truth. You were never alone in those woods, and you never left them behind. Have you ever heard laughter in the woods when there's no one else around? I don't mean a bird call or a branch snapping in the wind. I mean giggling, like a child, alone in the forest. Because last summer, deep in the woods of North Carolina, we found something inside a hollow log. A small shoe and claw marks. That night, we heard tapping on trees, like it was coming for us. And I swear to you, I don't think we ever really left those woods. It started as a regular weekend hike. Me, Chris, Jamie, and Lex. We'd all grown up together, tight-knit since middle school. We were hiking near Black Balsam Knob. If you've been, you know it's beautiful. Rolling green hills, open balds, old-growth forests that feel like they haven't changed in centuries. It was Lex who spotted the log. "Yo, check this out," he said, already crouching down. It looked like an old, burned-out tree had fallen and rotted from the inside. The base had cracked open, wide enough for someone to crawl inside, and someone had. Inside the log, right near the back where the light barely reached, was a child's shoe. Old, faded, dirty canvas, and just next to it, long, erratic scratch marks etched deep into the wood, too wide to be made by a child, too chaotic to be from an animal. We all froze. Jamie muttered, "Nope," and backed away. Chris pulled out his phone to take a picture, but it died. Fully charged just an hour ago. Lex looked at me and whispered, "Who the hell would crawl in there?" We moved on, all feeling just a little off. Nobody said it, but we were shaken. We found a spot to set up camp just before sunset. Open clearing, surrounded by tall pines. It was quiet, too quiet, not even the usual chirping bugs. Jamie kept glancing back toward the trail. "Do you hear that?" she asked. But none of us heard anything. Not yet. That night after the fire burned low, we heard it. A giggle, soft, high-pitched, close. It came from the trees just behind Jamie's tent. She thought it was one of us. But we were all accounted for, sitting silently by the fire. Chris grabbed a flashlight and swept it through the trees. Nothing. Then the sound came again, but this time from the opposite side of the camp. Tap, tap, tap. Rhythmic, measured, like someone knocking on wood. It started faint, but repeated all night. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes right behind our tents. I didn't sleep. None of us did. And somewhere deep between the taps and the silence was the giggle again. I think I slept for maybe 10 minutes. In that sleep, I dreamed of crawling inside that log. The walls were closing in, getting tighter, scraping my skin. I could hear something breathing behind me. Closer, closer. When I woke up, my arm was bleeding, 3 thin, fresh scratches running from my wrist to my elbow. At first light, we were done. We packed up, barely speaking. But when we passed the log again on the way out, the shoe was gone, and in its place a handprint. Small, child-sized, pressed into the mud, with 4 fingers, no thumb. Weeks later, back home, I found something in my backpack, tucked deep inside a side pocket I never use. A tiny pine cone wrapped in thread, and inside it something sharp, a baby tooth, still bloodied at the root. None of us had any idea how it got there. But all of us, every single one of us, has had the same dream ever since. We're back inside that log, and something behind us is giggling. People vanish in the woods all the time. Most are never found. Sometimes it's animals, sometimes it's the elements, and sometimes it's the ones who never left. The ones still playing, still tapping, still giggling. So if you hear knocking at night, don't answer, and for the love of God, don't crawl inside the log. Have you ever stared death in the face and not even known if it was human? I never believed in the supernatural. Monsters, ghosts, cryptids, it was all nonsense to me. Just stories told around the fire. Until I saw the shadow. It was standing right outside my tent, unmoving, silent, watching me for hours. And when the sun finally rose, it was gone. But what I found outside? Bare footprints, dozens of them, circling my tent. And that was only the beginning. It was late October when I drove into the Arizona desert alone. I wanted solitude, a break from people, the kind only the empty desert could offer. I picked a remote spot off an old service road, far from campsites, towns, even cell signal, just sand, sky, and silence. I pitched my tent, made a small fire, and ate under the stars. The night was still, peaceful. Nothing felt wrong, not yet. Sometime after midnight, I woke up. No sound, no wind, just a feeling. Like someone was watching me. I sat up slowly, heart pounding, knife in hand, just in case. That's when I saw it. A shadow, tall and still, silhouetted against the tent wall. At first, I thought it was a tree. But there were no trees that close, no branches, no movement, just a figure, unmoving, facing me. I didn't move, didn't breathe. That shadow didn't either. Minutes passed, then an hour, then another. It just stood there. I kept gripping that knife so hard my hands started to cramp. I wanted to scream, but something deep inside whispered, "Don't. It's listening." The sky finally began to lighten. I peeked through the zipper. Nothing. No one was there. I flung the tent open, ready to face something, but the desert was empty. The only sound was the wind. I stepped out and froze. The sand around my tent wasn't untouched. There were bare footprints, human, no shoes, no socks. They circled my tent again and again, once, twice, over a dozen times. Not running, not walking away, just around. Like it had been watching me from every angle. I followed the footprints. They went maybe 10 feet out, then just stopped. No return path, no direction. No explanation, like whoever or whatever made them had vanished into the air. I searched for an hour. I found nothing. No other camps, no roads, no trash, no signs anyone had ever been there. Just my tent. And those prints. That whole day, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I packed up early, but I stayed one more night. Big mistake. That night I heard breathing outside the tent. Not mine. Deep, slow, wet breathing. I whispered into the dark, "Who's there?" No answer, just a single long scratch across the side of the tent. I didn't wait till morning. I shoved everything into my truck and drove. Didn't care where, just away. Even now, I don't know what I saw. A person? A spirit? Something else? But it followed me. I feel it sometimes, in reflections, in dreams. And last week, I found fresh barefoot prints outside my apartment window. People say the desert is empty, but it isn't. It sees you, hears you, waits. I went into the desert to find peace. Instead, I found the shadow, and it never left. So if you ever see barefoot prints around your tent, and no one's there, run, because whatever it is, it's not done with you yet. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone you know and realized they're not the person you thought they were? That happened to me last summer in the Rockies, and I haven't seen my friend the same way since, because something wore his face. Something stood there pretending to be him, and it told me in a voice that wasn't quite his, "I'm not supposed to be here." It was just me and my friend Josh. 3 days into a week-long backpacking trip deep in the Rocky Mountains. We were both experienced hikers. This wasn't anything new for us. The air was crisp, the trees endless, and the only sounds were our footsteps and the distant calls of birds. That morning, we'd hiked to a remote ridge and set up camp beside a narrow stream. We joked around, filtered water, made dehydrated meals. It was peaceful, uneventful, until Josh said he was heading into the woods to take a leak. Josh had been gone for a while, too long for just a bathroom break. I called out, "Yo, you good?" No answer. Then, crunching footsteps. He walked back into the clearing, but something felt off. He wasn't looking at me. He moved strangely, like his limbs didn't fit right, like he was learning how to use them. And most of all, he was silent. Completely silent. I said, "Dude, where were you? You okay?" He didn't respond, just stared at me like I was a stranger. His eyes, they weren't curious or playful like usual. They were flat, like a mask. He sat down across from me but didn't touch his food, didn't drink his water, just stared, like he was studying me. My skin crawled. Finally I said, "Josh, you're acting weird. What's going on?" He blinked, slowly, then looked me in the eye for the first time. And in a voice that was a little too deep, just a few notes off, he said, "I'm not supposed to be here." Then he stood up abruptly and walked into the trees without a word. I didn't follow. I just sat there, heart pounding in my ears, mouth dry. What the hell had I just talked to? 20 minutes later, I heard more footsteps. I stood up, panicked, ready to bolt. But then Josh stepped into the clearing again, sweaty, mud on his pants, panting like he'd been running. I backed away, stuttering, What the hell are you?" And he looked confused, genuinely confused. "I just got lost," he said. "I couldn't find my way back." "Why are you freaking out?" I grilled him, asked him questions only the real Josh would know, what he called his old dog growing up. The joke we always made about that ranger in Colorado, the night we got snowed in on Pikes Peak. He answered them all, perfectly. It was him. But then, what the hell was that other thing? We stayed up all night. We didn't talk much. The silence between us was louder than the wind. At one point, I swore I heard footsteps out in the dark. But when I shone my flashlight, there was nothing. Only the whisper of pine needles moving, like something large had just slipped away. We packed up and hiked out the next morning without saying a word. But just as we reached the trailhead, I looked back and saw something in the tree line. It looked like Josh, same clothes, same hair, but it didn't move. It just watched us from between the trees, its head slightly tilted, and then it slowly stepped backward into the shadows and vanished. I haven't told Josh what I saw. I don't know how. We still go hiking together, but I watch him now. I look for the signs. Sometimes I wonder, what if the one who came back wasn't really him? What if the real Josh never left that forest, and I've been hiking with something that only looks like him ever since? If you ever see your friend acting strange in the wilderness, if they look like them, sound like them, but something just feels wrong, trust your instincts. Something out there is watching, and sometimes it likes to wear your face.